Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Coller here, and the Minnesota Vikings practice today. It was not the toughest, most hard-nosed practice of all time, but it was a full-speed practice, just not in pads. So we're still going to go over it the same way we have every other practice. Tomorrow they are off on Tuesday, and then the joint practices with the Baltimore Ravens. I'm very, very interested to see what happens between Kyler Murray offense versus the Ravens defense with Jesse Minter as their head coach now. And then on the other side, Lamar Jackson against this revamped Vikings defense. It will be a lot of fun. Of course, live shows after both of those practices as always. And can't wait to bring you guys whatever happens out there on the practice field. But let's jump into what happened today. I've got a lot of notes and also a lot of room for questions, comments, thoughts. If you have leftover thoughts from the preseason game, I did include a couple of notes just from rewatching the all 22 of the preseason game. So if you have thoughts from that or other questions, concerns, and feelings, drop them in the chat, and I will jump right into that once we go through the notes. But as always, we begin with the quarterback grid. If it's a full practice, still going to have the quarterback grid for Kyler Murray to give you the full report on how he performed today. Started off the practice with a really good throw to Justin Jefferson over the middle. The only real downfield pass of the day because they did a lot of red zone stuff, which I will dive into. So plus 20 yards, and it was borderline. Like, was it actually 19 yards, 23 yards? I'm not sure, but I put it in for over 20. So one positive throw there. And the intermediate stuff, there were four passes and, four passes. Only one of them was complete over the middle. There was a negative throw interception, which I'll get into. And then the red zone, a lot of stuff underneath because when you're doing a lot of red zone, that's what you're going to get. And Murray was 9 for, 3, 5, and 9. 9 completions and 3 incompletions. So that's 9 for 12, everyone. So a lot of completions in the red zone drill. Let's take a look at the highlights and lowlights to be a little bit more specific about Kyler Murray's day. As I mentioned, open up with a really nice throw on point to Justin Jefferson. You know, it's a favorite of Kevin O'Connell's to have that up and in and then throw it on time right over the middle, bang, hit Justin Jefferson. That was the best pass of the day in 11 on 11s. Overall, he was 11 for 17 today. So fine, but I wouldn't say it was a phenomenal day for Kyler Murray. It was just a decent, good practice overall, but there were some down moments, which I will get into. Also had 2 tight window throw touchdowns to TJ Hockenson, and I think we should just stop and talk about TJ Hockenson for a minute. The first one was in the back of the end zone, Kyler Murray putting it up where Hockenson could go up and get it. I mean, it was a very nice leaping catch in the back of the end zone. And then another one just defended very closely by Blake Cashman, put it where only Hockenson could get it for a touchdown. And I can't say that during the practices so far this summer that I have been thinking, wow, Kyler Murray just keeps pumping the ball to TJ Hockenson. I mean, he has had a fair number of catches the same way Juwan Jennings has had a fair number of catches, or Jordan Addison. He has been throwing a lot overall to Justin Jefferson, which is what you're supposed to do in this offense. But as he threw these 2 passes to Hockenson in the red zone, it was a bit of a reminder that as good as Hockenson has been at times as a Minnesota Viking tight end, and especially 2023, but even when he arrived, he had like 9 catches in his first game after never playing before for the Minnesota Vikings, which was very impressive. He and Kirk were on the same page, but even then, he was not quite the red zone threat of Kyle Rudolph or somebody that you would expect as a top tight end and a Pro Bowl tight end to be. That even, last year it was hard for anybody to find him or any quarterback to throw a touchdown at all. But even when Kirk was here, there were times where it felt like, can you find TJ Hockenson and in the end zone? And then Sam Darnold, the game against the Detroit Lions that I think about a lot going back to 2024 when they struggled in the red zone. Can you get the ball to TJ Hockenson? So today it's only a 7-on-7 practice, but I think it is a key for Kyler Murray. When I was rewatching Kyler Murray's last season and a half, over this spring, and I guess going back to the winter when the idea first came up, like, let me go back and watch some Kyler Murray, and slowly but surely working my way through his last 22 games or so. But the red zone was a bit of a struggle for Murray. And at times it felt like they would put all their attention onto Trey McBride, and then it was, hey, Kyler, you're probably going to have to make a great play. Or they tried to run the ball a lot in the red zone with James Conner. But it never felt like he had this one really solid, sound option that he could go to in the red zone. Can TJ Hawkinson be that? Also, Josh Oliver caught a touchdown today. Can Josh Oliver be that out of the big personnel? It just was a reminder of what a big part of Murray's success or failure the red zone is going to be, and a little promise today, because I don't think he has been the sharpest in the red zone overall, but this was probably his best 7-on-7 of the summer. In terms of the lowlights, he had an interception where he overthrew, I believe it was Jordan Addison over the middle of the field, and Theo Jackson went up and made a play. It's good to see for Theo Jackson because he has not had a ton of those plays during this training camp. He has had them in the past where it's felt like he was getting an interception every day, getting pass breakups every day. Haven't seen quite as much of that so far this summer, but a nice play by him to go up and get it. But of course, a negative throw from Kyler Murray. And this is the one type of pass to be concerned about with Kyler Murray, where it's over the middle. Can he see the field well? Can he get the ball up in the right trajectory? And this one came out a little too high and ends up getting intercepted. Also had two batted balls in the backfield. One of them was picked off, just sort of batted up in the air on, I don't know, a swing pass, a screen pass, something like that by Ty Ingram Dawkins. And then there was another one that was batted to the ground where it looked like someone hit his arm, which you should not be doing in practice, defensive line. But still, nonetheless. And there were snapping issues again. And this is the point where, all right, I am pretty willing to ring the bell or sound the alarm a little bit on the snapping. Because early in training camp, okay, Blake Brandel, work your way in. You're playing center for the very first time. And I don't think any of these issues are on the quarterback. The issue today was literally a bowling ball. It was just rolled back along the ground, and that is not going to work for any quarterback. Doesn't matter if you're short or tall, rolling it back to them like that, not going to work. I mean, almost every single day, there has been either a snap where Kyler had to reach out and grab it, or one that was rolled back to him, or one that was high, or one that was outside. I mean, there's just been far too many of these. And I think it is time to say, all right, we are at practice number 14. Snap the ball. I mean, I understand that Blake Brandel is not a career center. It's something they're still working on. And I think that last year it was okay mostly, except for one truly awful one. But there was even another one with Carson Wentz where it was pretty high. And this is a situation with snapping where 95 out of 100 is not good enough. Like, it needs to be 100 out of 100. And in training camp, it has been nowhere near that. So I really think that it is become officially after today, if it wasn't before, but really after today, it's a worry that Brandel is struggling so much with these shotgun snaps as we go into the season. I think he can pass block. I think that he can run block pretty well, that he's got size. Maybe is going to have trouble with pad level at times, but has movement skill as a former offensive tackle, has some athleticism for a center. But man, you got to start with that first part, which is get the ball to Kyler Murray in the snap. And there's really no options here other than Blake Brandel. And this is why we had talked about in the offseason, will they get maybe a journeyman backup center? Remember when they had Austin Schlottman? That guy was pretty good. Like, they had to play Schlottman for a couple games. He was totally fine when Garrett Bradbury got banged up. But it's Michael Juergens behind him. And if there's issues or even an injury, like, this is a guy in Juergens who hasn't played a whole lot either. So that was concerning for today and needs to get cleaned up in the rest of training camp, because if you're going into the season as Kyler Murray, not sure whether that ball's going to arrive to where it's supposed to get, it's not a great start to every play because they're all timed out with footwork. So if you're having to chase down the snap at first, it's going to throw things off. So it's got to be worked on without question. Okay, let's get through some of the notes here. Kevin O'Connell announced to us before practice started that Jamal Adams has a quad tear in his right leg. He also had this injury in his other leg that kept him out previously, so he will be out for the season. But O'Connell said that he will be around the team and said that he even talked to Adams' family about staying in Minnesota and continuing to be a Minnesota Viking. I think that that's a really good idea for the mental health of the player. And also, I think that Jamal Adams can be really helpful to this secondary, to the linebacking core, to everybody. I mean, this is a guy who has a ton of experience. You could tell when Jamal Adams was in the building what a great fit he was with the rest of the team. The younger guys were calling him OG and so forth. And I think he was giving a lot of knowledge about the game to a lot of the younger players. And it is a young defense all of a sudden. So I think that was helpful. I think that will be helpful to have him as part of the team, even though he got hurt. But it also now shines a light on that safety position, as we also did not see Jacoby Thomas again today. He was doing some sprints on the other field, so maybe doing a little bit more ramp up, and we'll see if he can get back at any point during the joint practices or maybe by the third preseason game. But there was no real timeline on Jacoby Thomas. So a really unfortunate, really sad thing. And if you got to just, see any of Jamal Adams' interviews, he was so excited to be with the Vikings, to be with Brian Flores. And I don't know exactly what the role was going to be, but O'Connell did mention that, Brian Flores was kind of getting excited about the different things he could do with Jamal Adams and Nolan Teasley. They were really liking where it was going. And I believe them, considering how much he was playing, how much he was blitzing, the TFL we saw in the preseason game where he had some burst and power, and he had played pretty well for the Raiders last year. So, even when he signed, I was a little skeptical, but as it went along, I was like, okay, this could actually be something. And then a really, really crushing injury, by far the worst part of the preseason is when people get hurt. So, but Adams being around the team, I think, will be really helpful for him and really helpful for the team as well as they go forward. Jacob Thomas, who was an undrafted free agent from James Madison, which was a really, really good college football team last year. He was a guy that during OTAs, during minicamp, didn't get a whole heck of a lot of work. He was more likely than not preparing to try to be a special teamer and maybe fight his way onto the team by just pure special teams. But now this guy is getting first team reps today. That's right. He was getting first team reps, and they have to do some rotating because they're short now several safeties. I didn't see Tavier Thomas today either. So Tavier Thomas, Jamal Adams, and Jacoby Thomas. So Jacob Thomas is kind of next man up. But I think this guy looks comfortable when he's taking his first and second team reps. He got the interception on Saturday, made a nice play there. And then just watching him today out there, the way he moves, the way he rotates, he is definitive in his movements. And I asked Josh Metellus after practice, how hard is this to do for this guy? And he said he had been very, very impressed with how quickly Jacob Thomas had gotten into these reps and did something with them, because he didn't get to practice really there very much at all with the third team when it was in OTAs and minicamp, which is where guys are really starting to learn the playbook. And I talked to Jacob after practice as well, and he said, yeah, it was pretty darn challenging to learn Brian Flores' playbook at the safety position, but now he has started to really feel comfortable. He said actually when he stepped on the field was the first time where he was like, yeah, I am comfortable playing this position for the Minnesota Vikings. Made a heck of a play. And I have not done a 53-man roster projection. I will probably do one after this week, maybe, and go from there. But I think I might have Jacob Thomas on that 53-man roster as an undrafted free agent. Thank you very much, Chris, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. So he is a guy to watch. And, here we were thinking that Charles Demings had completely locked down Mr. Mankato, and an undrafted free agent comes in, picks off a pass, starts playing first and second team reps, and we go, oh, there are contenders for this Mr. Mankato, because if Jacob Thomas makes the 53, sorry, Charles Demings, that's your Mr. Mankato. Although I will say that I have another note here about Charles Demings. So Jacob Thomas, suddenly a guy to watch, and I've really liked his springiness, liked his quickness, like his instincts. Kind of has, I'll give Dane Mizutani credit for this one. He said, does he remind you of like Cam Bynum a little bit? And I think the answer is yes. I honestly think that he has some of those type of traits where we didn't really know what to think of Cam Bynum when he got here and was moving from corner to safety. And then all of a sudden it was like, this guy seems to really get it. And it's hard to tell sometimes with the safety position. Were you in the right spot and so forth? But what you usually can see is decisiveness with the movement skill and then playmaking. He's had some PBUs in practice, gets the pick in the game, and is on the radar now. Today at practice, Caleb Banks took a lot of reps. I think I'm going to guess on this that it was the most reps that he's taken in 5-on-5 action since he became a Minnesota Viking. But I think that guess is correct just because it's been pretty limited for the number of reps he's taken per day. And today it wasn't. He was rotating in a lot with the starters, with the first and the second team. But I saw him a lot with the starters out there today. So Caleb Banks is in total ramp up type of mode after playing a lot of snaps in the preseason game, which I will get to and talk a little bit more after watching the All-22. But you could tell now that they're turning a corner with him of take it slow, take it slow, take it slow. All right, the gas pedal's got to get pushed down a little bit more if he's going to be ready for week 1. I mentioned Chuck Demings with another pass breakup today, and I'm starting to wonder if Demings could be cornerback 3. Now, they don't play nickel all the time. James Pierre did have a tough preseason game. I don't know how much that matters. The guy's been in the league for a long time. Maybe just playing it a little bit safe. But Demings continues to make plays. Could he actually be an option there? And I think that the broadcast mentioned that on Saturday as well. Like, is that a competition all of a sudden as we go into these joint practices between him and James Pierre? Zamiah Vaughn had an interception today on a throw from Carson Wentz. And if you were wondering, Wentz was taking the QB3 snaps while JJ McCarthy was taking the QB2 snaps. So McCarthy got more work today than Carson Wentz did. Wentz only had a handful of snaps and I think had 2 interceptions today. One was a great play by Zamiah Vaughn. I don't know that was on the quarterback. He just got position on Dylan Bell and made a play. And Dylan Bell, continues to kind of just not really be a thing at this point and had a pretty bad drop in the game. And Miles Price had a great catch from JJ McCarthy on a line drive throw where he snatched it out of the air over the middle of the field. And that man is making his case. I mean, last year I would have told you, I don't know, like, is he going to switch him to running back or something? But this year, this dude has looked like a legitimate NFL wide receiver, and it does make you think, could he actually be wide receiver 4 if they needed to go to somebody off the bench? Could he make a case for himself to be a part of a rotation? I don't know, but he is certainly doing it in practice. Okay, let me get to a couple of notes after watching the All-22 back, and then we'll dive into your questions and comments, so forth. And there's also an ESPN article that popped up that caught my eye a little bit, and I want to get to that at some point if we have time. So I want to say that Caleb Banks, it was rough. It certainly was. He got a 30 PFF grade, and Francis Maui-Noah walked him back a couple of times. It was not exactly what you would have liked to have seen from a guy that everybody talks about, the size, the power. He's just going to throw offensive linemen. And that didn't really happen against very, very talented NFL offensive linemen in his first game. But I would also say it's his first game, and he has not had the type of ramp up to that moment that other defensive tackles have had. And this is why we've been talking about a little bit of patience with Caleb Banks. And hey, maybe this might take some time. Maybe he's not going to be right away somebody who plays 30 or 40 snaps a game. It might be like 15, and it might be in just favorable situations where he can rush the passer at first and then build on that. I'm still thinking that that's going to be the case. But I would also say, don't overreact. Don't overreact to, oh, whoa, okay, he was getting moved a lot, because that's how you learn. That's how you build on it. That's why they have the preseason, is so players can develop and get opportunities to ramp themselves up for the regular season, right? I mean, I think that there's a lot of teams and coaches who would be perfectly fine canceling the entire preseason. But for some players, these are really good developmental opportunities. And I think it will be for Banks the next time he goes out, understanding a little bit better what he's going to have to do when he's not in practice and the other guy is not his teammate and is really trying to move him back. I think that the Vikings offensive linemen have, done a good job of playing against him, but he's just going to have to learn with some of these things. I also didn't think that every rep was bad, that there were a couple where you went, okay, I see some of that, but this is a player who's going to need some time. And I think that was evident in watching back his first game. Also, the first run of the day, I probably watched it like 5 times. I mean, Christian Darrisaw just pancaking a guy, and Max Bredesen, who has just seemed so confident right from the jump back there. I mean, this guy looks like he knows the offense, the run game inside and out in practice, and then look the part. And you guys know that when I see a fullback in the National Football League in 2026 getting out there and moving and lead blocking, it's like little tear runs down. I mean, I think the fullback is back, folks. I really do. I think it's a big part of this offense. I think it's back a lot around the NFL, along with tight ends. And you see the advantage when you have a personnel advantage, when you have an extra blocker at, I don't know, is he 250 pounds flying out of the backfield, moving a body? That's what this offense got a lot out of with CJ Ham last year, using him more. But now, fresh legs with Max Bredesen. He's also a little more, I think, built for, it's like CJ Ham maximized every ounce of talent that he possibly could to have a great NFL career as a fullback. But he was a running back that sort of forced his way into a fullback position. Max Bredesen is built like a brick house. He is built like a tight end who has moved back to fullback. So it's a little Jim Kleinsaucery. And I know it's only one play, but it was like, this looks like an identity for a run game that we haven't seen in a while. And that play was very impressive. McCarthy's issues, when I watch back McCarthy, you already know what they were. You saw the game, airmailed a pass, took too long to get rid of the football. I did think it was a little overstated though. Like there were a lot of people, at least that I saw the reaction, where it was like, oh my God, this is just the worst. And it was not good, but there was a drop pass, which I thought was actually a good throw by McCarthy. There was another one that was a pretty good throw. He was a little maybe late on, but still was a pass interference. And I just thought, I don't know that we should be reacting this much to 7 passes by JJ McCarthy. I think what it tells you, what happened in the preseason, is that, again, Kevin O'Connell is not really going to use this, because I saw a lot of people wanted him to throw 40 passes. I'm with you. I think that it's better if he has more preseason action, more actual game action. I'd prefer that he throw 20 passes and just see if he could get in a rhythm kind of thing throughout a game. But it's something we've long known, is this is not really what, Kevin O'Connell is going to judge off of. But I still do think that QB2, QB3 thing is a conversation that you would have liked to have seen better. I just thought, okay, maybe we went a tad too far. I didn't think my post game did, but I thought the reaction did a little bit. I got to say, is there a way to put Ryan Vandemark in? How about this for a lineup? 6 offensive linemen with Ryan Vandemark, with Max Bredesen in the backfield, and Josh Oliver out there at tight end, and Jawan Jennings at wide receiver. I don't know if that's too many players, but can you have them on the field at once? This dude is big, and he can run block. In practice, we've seen it quite a bit, but we saw it in this game as well. I think he could be, if he got into the game, he could be a 6th offensive lineman. I also think that if they need him in a pinch, that he can be a difference-making run blocker off the bench, which is something that you would not expect to say for a backup offensive lineman. And held his own fine with the pass protection. I think there's a quickness issue there. He's very tall. Like, the guys could get around him from what we've seen of him facing, Vikings defensive ends. But when it comes to edge rushers, but when it comes to run blocking, he had a very good day. I liked what I saw from Jake Golday, not so much in the pass rush. I think that's going to take some time in the NFL, but he was all over the place versus the run. He looked like he was in the right spots. Looked like as he went on a little bit throughout the game that he got more confident. So I liked what I saw there. And the best pass rusher of the game, I thought, was Elijah Williams, who had some really good reps, got into the backfield, got a couple of pressures, and also had an impact on the sack that Bo Richter had. But there were not much else. There weren't many other pass rush reps to speak of from anyone really. I mean, Tyron Grabdalkins had a couple, but I still think that outside linebacker group is one that we will be talking quite a bit about. So, there you go. There is all the notes for today. So let me get you a FanDuel question of the day and then a message from our sponsor, and then on to you guys for a hopefully a good chat. After a pretty chill practice overall, I think it was competitive today. It just, they didn't have pads, and the real super competitive practices will be on the way very soon. So the FanDuel question of the day is this. The line has actually moved for week 1. The Vikings are now favored against the Green Bay Packers on FanDuel by 1.5 points. Has your confidence gone up during this time of training camp? Because apparently the money has moved a little bit over to the Vikings on FanDuel, so there may be a little more confidence in them because they opened as underdogs to the Packers and now are 1.5 point favorites, which I know enough to know that they're the home field advantage and there's points that go that way and everything else. So it's not like it's a big edge, but still 1.5 points. And allow me to tell you about my friends over at Brooklyn Betting. So for the longest time, I was having so much trouble getting to sleep because I got this back thing going on, and it was just tossing and turning and feeling like I was sliding off the side of the bed or turning into a hammock where I'm into the middle. And just getting my Aurora Lux mattress from Brooklyn Betting has been a complete game changer for my sleep. You guys see how much energy I have for 2-hour live streams? Well, where do you think that comes from? Great sleep now that I have my Aurora Lux mattress. And the mattress is not that expensive, but seem like they are built for long-term durability in mind, and certainly the craftsmanship, it feels solid, intentional, built to last. Noticed that right away and did not need much time to get comfortable in this mattress. And the best part, I think, is that I was able to get exactly what I needed for the back issue, for the way that I sleep. And they have even hard to find sizes and every body type, every sleep style you can get crafted for you at Brooklyn Betting. And if it doesn't work out on the first try, you have a 120-night comfort trial. So they give you a long time to figure it out. Do you really love this mattress? And you can swap it or return it hassle-free if you want to make a change. So go to brooklynbetting.com and use my promo code PURPLE to get 30% off on their back-to-school sale. That is brooklynbetting.com, promo code PURPLE, 30% off on the back-to-school sale. Now, let's talk. What is on your mind? Let us begin with first comment tonight from Bumbaclat. Says Jacob Thomas over Tavier Thomas for the last safety spot. He looks promising. Backup interior offensive line looks shaky. Agree on all of that. I mean, I haven't done a 53. Can you get Tavier Thomas as a specialist on the roster as well? I mean, I know that it's important for Matt Daniels to have leadership on this group. They did lose CJ Ham, so if you lose 2 veterans, that's a lot of young players in the lineup. But Jacob Thomas, there's something there. I don't know how much is there, but it's something. In practice, you can see, and this is sort of goes for the way we talked about Theo Jackson in the past, where it's like, something's there. I don't know what the ceiling is. I don't know how good it's going to turn out exactly, but this guy can play on an NFL football field with a first team unit and not look out of place. And he can make plays and he can get some pass breakups. He can make an interception and he can move around quite well. So if you're giving me the choice, the younger player with some potential, you would prefer that they end up on the 53-man roster. I don't want to go way over the top because he had a very nice interception and start saying, get rid of, other players and start him or whatever else. But I mean, he is emerging as someone who could be a special teams specialist like Tavierre Thomas. Like, he has learned quickly on that end as well. It's just that, sometimes you could get these guys through the practice squad and there's not a lot of poaching that goes on in the NFL, but I'm starting to feel more like there is a decent chance that Jacob Thomas could make this roster with the Jamal Adams injury. And I was thinking that Jamal Adams was going to make it. So if you just swap those two, then you're right. There might not be room for Tavierre Thomas. Bumbleclap follows up with Leonard Floyd, Derek Barnett, Hassan Reddick, Kyle Van Noy. Who do you prefer? Who do you think it will be? We probably have reached the point where will be is correct, that somebody's showing up here. And I had a thought that maybe it would be Von Miller. And then all of a sudden, Von Miller signs with the Dallas Cowboys, and it's not going to be Von Miller. That would have been kind of cool because he is going to the Hall of Fame someday and showed last year that he could still be a situational pass rusher. I think that Floyd is the best fit. I think also that Barnett was pretty darn good in a rotational role for the Houston Texans. I didn't even realize he was still a free agent, but he's on your list, so I'm assuming you're right. Hassan Reddick, a little less so. I thought that he kind of faded last year with Tampa Bay. His numbers weren't that great. And Van Noy was still pretty good with the Baltimore Ravens and has the connection with Flores from Miami, although I don't know if they ended on great terms for how that worked out. So Floyd would probably be the favorite if there is one, but I could see any one of those guys showing up here. And I think that there's, pluses to all of them. I think all of them could play the potential Dallas Turner role. I think Van Noy a little less so. He's a little less of a pass rusher than the other guys, like pure pass rusher. Reddick and Floyd are more so. Reddick in his prime is one of the best pass rushers in the entire NFL. And Floyd too. I mean, he was like 1,000 snap player for the Rams in 2021. And Barnett has been a rotational player in recent years. So I'd say probably three of them make a lot of sense to be a backup for Dallas Turner's role. But I also am not sure that they have a backup for Andrew Van Ginkel's role either. I mean, it might be Jake Golday, but I kind of like him better as an inside linebacker at this moment in his career. So two of them, I mean, you could use two of them. Scamping around is the center, the position we'll be talking about all season. It's very possible. Yeah. I mean, I know that feeling, man. I know exactly what you're getting at. Like, I can sense it in your comment of not this again. As Jaron Curse once tweeted, not this again. But it seems like the offensive line, since going all the way back, I don't know, a decade, there's always been that one or two players, but it's usually one guy that just frustrates the heck out of the fans and everybody watching. And whether it was unfairly a little bit Tom Compton, or if it was fairly Dakota Dozier, or whoever it might be, that could be Blake Brandel here because they decided to go in this direction. Now, I understand why they decided to go in this direction, because Brandel knows the offense inside and out. And with a new quarterback, and even if McCarthy had won the competition, you'd have a young quarterback. You're looking for somebody who can set the protections the right way, who can communicate with the offensive line. He knows these guys. He is tight with a lot of the other offensive linemen. I know, like, it shouldn't matter that they're friends, but it actually does for offensive linemen. Like, their ability to communicate with each other is really, really big. And they are the problem solvers up front. So if Blake Brandel is a really good problem solver, but he struggles with, some pass protection or some run blocking, well, you can forgive that. And you could say, well, that's, okay, understandable. Kyler Murray can get away if he gets beat quick by a defensive tackle or something. But snapping is not something that's acceptable, to be bowling the ball back there to the quarterback or flying it to the left or right or over his head. That right there, you can't say, well, it's not that bad. No, that's bad. That's bad. So that needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed ASAP, because they can't have that in real games. They can't have Kyler Murray, especially in a rhythm passing offense where, I've really noticed that the underneath stuff has been executed very well from Kyler in this camp, where you have, I think there was a pass today where Jordan Addison's running a quick out, and there it is, bang. It's like catch, step back, hit him, 5 to 7 yards, get moving, right? Or a 2nd and 4, you get a first down, something like that. 3rd and 4, get a first down. But you can't get the rhythm right if the snap you're chasing around back there. So that is something that is a red flag for sure on Brandel, and he's got to get it worked out because I think he can block well enough. I just need to see the snapping be a lot more consistent. Simon says the defense PFF grades were very interesting. I assume that you're referring to the Caleb Banks and Dominique Orange, who did not grade particularly well. I mean, obviously the guys who got interceptions graded well. When you have so few snaps in a game, even a single regular season game can be a little bit wonky when it comes to what the grades are. But I expected after watching it live, and I definitely expected when I looked at the PFF grades and the tape together, that Banks was going to get crushed by the grading, because if you get slammed back 7 yards by an offensive lineman, like happened to Caleb Banks a couple times, they ain't going to grade you very well. I promise you that. And I think for Banks, it reminds me a little bit when it comes to preseason of Jamar Chase dropping a bunch of balls in preseason, and people were really worried. And so I'm not saying, hey, it's going to be fine. I'm saying, like, let's keep it in context first, that we knew that this was going to take some time. This is the first time he's played football in a very long time, and there's a lot to learn from him. But I do think that it raises a little bit of a question of how much he's going to play right from the very beginning, and the grades told the story on that one. But if you have another grade that caught your eye, let me know. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate the compliment there. Engelhart, Kyle Van Noy would be your choice. Yeah, I mean, I like Van Noy as well. And all of those guys have played fairly well in rotational roles recently. Van Noy, I think, was asked to play a little too much for the Baltimore Ravens. He can do both. He can be a rusher. He can be he's been more of a Van Ginkel type throughout his career. But if you needed him to be more of a rusher, it's not like he can't do that. I guess I was just leaning slightly toward guys who have been a little more successful in their career as pure rushers off of the edge. But I think we also know that this is going to have to be a defense where Dallas Turner gets, 8 to 10 sacks. And then it's like, this guy with 5, this guy, I mean, we'll assume that Van Ginkel will do fairly well there too, but like this guy with 5, this guy with 2, this guy with 3, this guy, right? Because they're just going to have to send rushes from a lot of different places to add up to the pass rush. So, Young Cringe question, why didn't the Vikings draft Deion Walker in 2025? He had the same profile as Banks and more production in college. Yeah, I liked Deion Walker as a mid-round draft pick as well. I think the answer to your question would be they had almost no draft capital in 2025. I guess I would have to take a look and see if they were able to potentially draft him. I guess we could take a look. Let's see. Drafthistory.com will tell us this answer. So 2025, let's see, because they only had 5 picks in that entire draft. So let's see, where was Walker? He was taken 109th, and where were the Oh yeah, okay, yeah, they could have taken him. Yeah, that was the beginning of the 4th round, and they took Ty Felton with the 38th pick. So I guess that's what the choice came down to. And maybe there were, like, you never know, like, what other questions they might have had about Deion Walker, because I know that there was maybe some injury issues that had reduced his production. Not that Caleb Banks also didn't have injury issues coming in, but there were some injury issues that had reduced his production. And I know he played well for Buffalo last year, but that may have been a question. Like, we never know who they medically red flag. And I also think that they felt like they could see the writing on the wall with Jalen Naylor and decided that they wanted to go and take another wide receiver. Now, if Felton gets overtaken by Miles Price and doesn't see the field all season and is a punt gunner again and doesn't take over a Jalen Naylor role eventually, or if Juwan Jennings leaves after this season, then yeah, we might look at that and go, that guy was kind of right there. It was weird because he was considered a very high ranking prospect and then sunk, which made me think that maybe there were some injury issues, but I'm not sure. Purple Kool-Aid says James Daniels and Ryan Bates are still out there. At this point, it's getting worrying that Brandel can't seem to snap. Yeah, I mean, there's not often too many centers bumping around in free agency at this point that you could pick up. James Daniels has had some moments in his career where he's been pretty good. Has also been suspect at times. I know Bates has not had great numbers, which is probably why he's still a free agent out there. It might come down to, do they trust Juergens if they feel like they have to just make a change there, or will they stick with it? If you can't snap the ball, then you have to make a change. And this is something that is going to take a lot of work over these last couple weeks to get locked in, because if these things happen in a game, you just can't have 2 or 3 snaps per game, as there have been. It's felt like every other practice there's been some of these issues. So it might be worth looking at. I have felt like it was worth looking at a veteran who could potentially play if needed to look at some point. So we'll see if they decide to do that, if they decide to try to pick up somebody else before the start of the season at the interior offensive line, because I don't know how much confidence there is in any of those guys. Like Joe Huber got into a game, and Henry Bird has had a lot of practice, a lot of practice and preseason work. Walter Rouse, I thought, looked fine as a guard, but it just doesn't look like he's going to make the team. They could use one more interior offensive lineman, somebody especially with experience playing guard and center, in my opinion. That's kind of where we're at right now. Bumbaclat has Bartholomew continued to impress enough to be tight end 3. He's been a little less noticeable, and that's probably because, well, they've gone to Kyler Murray. And what you see now is mostly ones versus ones. Like, these guys are getting ready to play in the National Football League season against the Green Bay Packers. So the twos get out there, but it's Hockenson, it's Oliver, it's the big boys now. Whereas there's a lot more twos getting out there when we were in the throes of the quarterback competition. But I think overall he has done enough to be tight end 3. Might depend on whether they view Ben Yurosek as somebody who's important to be like a backup fullback. If that's the case, I mean, they're working the fullback in to the point where you might need somebody else that you potentially trust to go back and do that role if he were to get banged up, because you can't just go from having an offense that has, I don't know, half of the plays with the fullback in there to not, or whatever percentage, 25% of the plays, to just, we don't have those plays anymore. Yurosek would be a guy who could potentially do that with his size and his blocking ability. But Bartholomew certainly catches the football, and he's also big too. So I wouldn't count him out. He does have legitimate size. I think right now, if I'm doing a 53-man roster, I would have Bartholomew on it. Minnesota Sports Pain says, has Hockenson looked back, or does he look slow and washed? I think every person on the Vikings last year looked worse than they actually are. Jefferson did, barely got over 1,000 yards. Addison, bunch of drops, struggles. I guess Naylor had a pretty good season. And then, then Hockenson as well. He has not, to me, looked slow and washed. I also don't know that he will ever be the 27-year-old tight end that he was in 2023 before he got hurt. I mean, even if he just had 3 more years of regular wear and tear on him, might not have run the same 40 that he did when he was a Pro Bowl tight end. But, what we saw today in the red zone, I think was very good for him to make a couple of catches there, that he could be a weapon there. And I do think that last year he was creating separation underneath and just wasn't getting the football. I mean, you look a lot better if you catch a 7-yard pass in a gap between a zone and you gain 12 yards. That looks pretty good for a tight end. But if you're never getting the football thrown your way, there were a few times where he ran like out routes and stuff like that last year with Carson Wentz in, where he found him. So he has caught a fair number of balls. It feels like it's increasing all the time from Kyler Murray. I do think Murray is going to lean on him quite a bit, but I don't think that it's going to go back to where it was in terms of the explosiveness that he had before, when he was known as more of a yards after catch tight end. Josh, did Wentz have a couple of interceptions? Does he look better than JJ, or was that higher preseason reps? Well, today it was not a good day for Carson Wentz. No, he did have 2 interceptions. I'm trying to think what the second one was. I think Byron Murphy got one of them. I think it was. There was one in the back of the end zone by Zemiah Vaughn that I'm not sure was a bad throw, but it was a really good play by Zamiah Vaughn. I thought the receiver could have fought for it a little more, but it wasn't a great day for Carson Wentz for sure today. He did look very comfortable in the preseason. Got the ball out super quick, like way quicker than JJ McCarthy, completed a lot of passes, gave Miles Price a chance to go up and get it. I don't know how much of the evaluation is on Carson Wentz on a day-to-day basis in these practices. It's probably much more on JJ McCarthy. And I thought McCarthy had a pretty good day today. He had quite a few completions, including a really good throw to Miles Price. So, I mean, I don't know how that evaluation is working. Like, is Kevin O'Connell using those preseason games and those preseason reps to make part of the evaluation? I guess we'll see when they play the preseason game against the Baltimore Ravens. I would assume that McCarthy is going to start and then Wentz is going to come in. Is that part of the competition? Because I guess I thought the way that it's usually done by O'Connell, preseason is a very small percentage, if any, of anything that they do. But when you airmail a guy on a third down and you are taking forever to get rid of the football, like, is that something that they're keeping a close eye on? Because it wasn't really close between the two quarterbacks in the actual game action, but we've only seen a little bit of Carson Wentz through practice. I think that O'Connell knows exactly what he has in Carson Wentz. He's been in the NFL for a long time. He played real games last year. He knows what the baseline is, and it's going to come down to how much does he trust McCarthy. So I want to see in these joint practices, like, do we see Wentz getting some second team reps, or is it all third team? Is it almost, no real work at all, and McCarthy is getting most of the work? We're going to find out. I'm very curious about that, because I think if we start seeing Wentz get quite a few second team reps, then you're going to okay, is this kind of happening or not? But it really is on JJ. It's kind of JJ versus JJ, because he should have every right with all of the reps that he's taken if he's improved and if they feel confident to be QB2. But if he's not, then that's not good. That means the trust is very low. Melkill, have you seen a fair amount of work on the red zone, big personnel? My question is, does it look like we're going to pass all 4 downs? I'll hang up and listen. That's funny. So 7-on-7, of course, they are passing every single play, and it's a little more from like the high red zone-ish, or like the 10 is where they're at with that. But in terms of, I haven't seen a lot of practice of, at least to this point, of the red zone plays where they're putting in big personnel and just ramming into the end zone. Do wonder if they're going to install some of the more intricate red zone stuff after the fans leave and can't film the entire practice because they don't want the Green Bay Packers to know what they're installing in the actual red zone. But they do have a different level, a different degree of personnel. Jordan Mason is a guy who you think should be pretty darn good at the goal line. Bredesen, I mentioned, Oliver, they have those guys, but they could also spread it out with Coller and dial up some stuff. I was watching some Miami run plays earlier in the offseason, and they did a lot of creative stuff with Tua out of like the pistol with some misdirection. He's not even a running quarterback. So I don't think that we're going to get the best look at some of the run plays at the goal line, because I think they're going to save that for when we're not watching. But they have the personnel. That's what we can say, is they have the personnel. And I think that if Kevin O'Connell did his looking in the mirror, that it appears that he did, hiring a new offensive line coach, having more of an emphasis in getting off the ball quicker, which I think you could see in the game, bringing in a fullback, extending Oliver last year. Like, all these things do point to more of a commitment to that, but we do have to see it in the game. Purple Kool-Aid says, are we worried about Metellus playing a more traditional safety role where he seemed to struggle last year? I would say that yes, the answer is yes under certain circumstances. Like, I don't have much concern about the communication part of it. I think that his football IQ is through the roof, and he's one of the smarter players you'll ever come across. Him coming downhill and making tackles, him blitzing, him tracking down screens and stuff like that, like all that stuff. Yeah, I would say I have pretty high confidence in. The one concern I would have is if I was going into a game as the Green Bay Packers and I'm Matt LaFleur, I'm looking at, how do I get Christian Watson running full speed at Josh Metellus? because that's just a different level. You know, Watson's one of the fastest receivers in the NFL. Can I get him up over top and have Jordan Love throw a 50-yard touchdown? Like, that's what I would be looking at. And that, I would say, is the one concern. The Will Levis 2024 touchdown there. I don't think that, Metellus' numbers were bad necessarily when he had to play that role, and he did have to play it quite a bit, but it was not the same as having Harrison Smith there. And, the instincts for Metellus, I think, have shown up when he's played in the box. Will they show up the same? It's more of just a big question. Can they show up? Because I think if you're not running a 4.340 and you have receivers like Christian Watson and Matthew Golden coming at you and Luther Burden and Roma Dunze, like, you got some real speedsters. You got to really anticipate where things are headed and read and react really quickly and then make plays on the ball. I think he can make plays on the ball, but there have just been times in his career where, jump balls and things like that have not really been his forte. So I do think that, yes, that's a little bit of a concern, but I also think for the run game, him coming downhill and making plays and having Jay Ward in the box, you saw his physicality is going to be a good thing. It's just, we're going to have to see it for a sample size before we can say, that it's going to work out for sure, because it is different. Jordan said, what happened the last time we handed Brandel the job with zero competition? Yeah, I know. He did play 17 games at guard, but eventually kind of got to a point where he was not performing at a very high level. That was in 2024. And kind of maybe also other people had things to do with the Vikings not going deep in the playoffs other than one guy. But yeah, I know what you mean. And not having a veteran backup center is a little bit of a surprise to me, just considering the circumstances where it's just Michael Juergens and Gavin Gerhardt, and that's it behind him. And that was kind of the issue they ran into last year. Bumbaclap, Brandel is far more suited to be a Swiss Army knife. Free agent centers, I just think it's too late in the game for free agent centers at this point. I mean, it really is. Where if you're trying to have Ryan Bates or James Daniels, if those guys are, I don't even know if those guys are in good health or want to play or what's going on. But even if you picked somebody up off another team, I mean, it is so late in the game. Like, you would rather have someone who's got some struggles. And I do think that he'll be fine if he snaps the ball. I really do think that he is a playable starting center at probably an average level if he snaps the ball okay. If he does not snap the ball okay, then he's not. Then no one would be if they can't snap it correctly. But if they have to play Juergens because of that, then you're probably hoping that that's only for a couple of games. So there isn't really a fallback option, and that's something that I think they should have looked closer at in the offseason. But yeah, I mean, it is something that is worth thinking about. Trade P1s. How did Kyler Murray look today? I would say that it was fine. It was one of those in the middle days. Like, he's had a couple of practices so far this year, and even since he got the job, where the ball didn't touch the ground. It was a laser show. It was like every pass being completed. That was not today. There were a few miscues in there. There was a batted ball that turned into a pick. There was an overthrow that turned into an interception, but he was very impressive in the red zone. So it was like a B minus type of practice, but that's how it goes. I mean, I've never done this before for tracking all the passes. There's people like it, so I think it paints a good picture for how the practice went overall. So I've kept doing it throughout the rest of training camp, and I'll definitely do it for Kyler during the joint practices. But I mean, I don't remember how every Kirk practice looked or Darnold for every single day until late August. So I wish I had a little more historical data to compare it to, but it was fine. Yeah, it was a regular practice, completed some passes, had some miscues. I do think that on a daily basis, we're seeing, and in the game, we're seeing the defense look pretty good. And even though there are questions here, like with Metellus and outside linebacker and stuff like that, I think it's a very talented team overall. And this youth movement is starting to show up a little bit. It's just that until we see it in real games, we're still going to be asking, hey, is this guy the answer? Is that guy the answer? But I do think the defenses look pretty good, especially in coverage. Let's see. I am surprised to see it's interesting to see when people are still coming in from time to time into the chat and talking about, JJ McCarthy and my coverage of him after he did not win the quarterback competition. I think it's time to probably move on from that, folks. If you're playing on those being your comments, they're really not worth it, I think. Totally agree, Sneedley, that centers are very hard to come by. And that's the thing, like with Brandel, it's like, well, why are they doing that? I think a big part of it is because centers are really hard to come by. I mean, we went through the options this offseason and we looked at the different guys that were the top free agents by the PFF numbers. And it was weird that the Washington Commanders cut Tyler Biadasz. That was surprising, but there's got to be a reason for that. And Lloyd Cushenberry was another one. He's played a lot of football, but at the same time, like, has not been an above average type of player. So, I think Blake Brandel with his performance last year was around average. It's just that as he's done more and more snapping, I think even the pass protection, I think that Kyler's had a lot of clean pockets during this camp. It's just that one thing you got to get right because it is extremely important. And yes, you do have to snap a lot probably in the shotgun with Kyler. I mean, I think he is going to play under center, but you're going to have him a lot in the shotgun for sure. So maybe they add somebody at some point. You're right. They did add an outside linebacker today, more likely just sort of a camp body type. So, let's see. Purple Kool-Aid, after what happened with Rondale Moore, it's good that they're offering resources for recovery after another injury setback. 100% agree. I think that's a great point, Purple Kool-Aid, because with Rondale Moore, Kevin O'Connell, I think he did say something to the effect of, they wish that they had been able to convince him to stay around the team after he got hurt last year. And it's a major concern. I mean, Tyler Dunn wrote a piece, and he's actually going to be on the show tomorrow, by the way, talking about his big Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy article. But Tyler Dunn wrote a piece with Jamal Adams after he had this same injury the first time, and just what a difficult place he was in with that recovery. I think that we really do not give enough credit to the players and how challenging an injury is to go through. I mean, anybody who's had a surgery and had to come back from that and recover from that, like, how hard that is. But we just take it for granted with NFL players. Oh, he just tore his quad. Well, that's too bad. On to the next safety. And it's like, I really, really respect the fact that Kevin O'Connell said that he talked to Jamal Adams' family. And he said, I really think it's a good idea that you stay here, be a part of this football team, compete with us, even if you can't be on the field. And I also think it's going to be really good for all the younger players in the locker room as well. So totally agree with you that was, I think, an important thing for Kevin O'Connell. And I do think the Rondale Moore thing impacted him greatly. Minnesota Sports Pain, if Jacoby misses quite a bit of training camp, what should we expect during the season? Practice squad, special teams, or rotational? At this moment, it's hard to have any expectations if he doesn't get back if he does not get back to playing and get into some of the preseason games, like where the expectations should possibly be set. I would say that it would be somebody who's inactive on game day. If he's not ready to get in there and play special teams, because it was unlikely that he was ever going to win a job. We know that Brian Flores has said repeatedly that he's patient with rookies, and with a guy missing time already, like, you're going to have to be extra patient. I thought he was looking okay and starting to get it when he was playing, and then he has this injury that sets him back. I don't think with a third round draft pick that you want to cut that guy out of camp and try to get him to the practice squad. There's not a lot of poaching in the NFL, but if somebody's third round pick gets cut, he's getting picked up somewhere, I would think. I'd be very surprised if you cut a third rounder and you ended up having that player not picked up by another team, as opposed to whoever was going to be the 53rd player for them. Somebody had to have a good scouting report on him and would probably pick him up. So I would guess making the team and then being inactive on game day to start, unless he could get back soon and get some reps in there, show that he could play on the special teams unit. But as of right now, I mean, they may need to keep, what is that? Is that 5 safeties? Jacob Thomas, if they want to keep him, Jacoby, and then the other 3. Yeah, 5 safeties, which would be a little bit unusual. Josh says they said Wentz got more snaps today than JJ. possibly true, but I didn't see that many with the second team. It looked to me like he was taking a lot more of the third group where he's playing with like Dylan Bell, Dante Fleming, and JJ was getting a lot of the work with Miles Price and Ty Felton. Now, does that mean anything? Like, I don't know. It's really in KOC's head. Like, he's the one that's going to have to decide, who do I trust to come off the bench? Because that's what the backup, that's what the number 2 is really going to be. Who do I trust to come off the bench if Kyler Murray got hurt in the middle of the game and give us a chance to win? As of this moment, based on how erratic JJ McCarthy can be, again, I didn't think that the preseason game was like this war crime or something that JJ McCarthy committed, but clearly it was slow. It wasn't quick. It was inaccurate for a couple of the passes, and Carson Wentz got rid of the football last year. Carson Wentz was the better quarterback of the two when they actually played in real games. So, I mean, right now, I mean, I don't know. I think it would be Carson Wentz, but McCarthy is getting still the second team reps, and we're going to be watching that against the Ravens. But maybe the actual count, I have only been tracking Kyler Murray since, I mean, he's the starting quarterback. So I've only been tracking him and his performance during these practices. I haven't been writing down every Carson Wentz pass, but you know, from the feeling, Wentz did have a worse day today with a couple interceptions. From the feeling, though, he has looked pretty definitive in getting rid of the football, which is going to be a factor for Kevin O'Connell for sure. Let's see. Chris, and again, thanks for that super chat, says, seems like the 3 positions of need are interior O-line, edge depth, and safety depth. Could you rank them in order of need and then give a potential option for each? So the interior O-line, I mean, I guess one of those free agents that was named earlier, but it's not easy. It is not easy to find interior O-line. So I guess I would say interior O-line, someone who gets cut. Edge rusher, we talked about a bit. Leonard Floyd is my best option, but there's probably more guys at that position who have played before in the NFL who are still free agents than any other. And safety depth, I mean, I don't know who's available there either. It really depends on whether they think that Jacob Thomas can be that safety depth. Again, there's just not like a ton of free agents to talk about. I have not memorized. If somebody's got an option for safety, I didn't look at the free agent safeties. I guess I could see if I could take a look here and see if there's any listed on overthecap.com. I just don't know that there's too many guys out there. The edge position is pretty unique because the edge position is one where you don't really truly need a whole lot of study. Rush the passer, bro. Let's see. Wait, that's not the right thing. I need to be looking at, oh yeah, this is the free agent tracker. So who's still available? I believe Donovan Wilson did sign with the team. So this lists Donovan Wilson. Jimmy Ward, is he healthy? Maybe that would be an option. Taylor Rapp, same question. There are some guys who've played before. Is Terrell Edmonds out there? Did he sign somewhere? Jabril Peppers, is he actually a free agent? That might be an option if he is, but it seems like nobody likes having him. Marcus May, who's like 1 million years old and has played forever. Dion Bush, like these guys have barely played. Darnell Savage hasn't been good in some time. Not really a very inspiring group, I don't think. For at the safety position there, but maybe Jabril Peppers. I don't know. He's always been kind of disappointing. Let's see. I agree, Purple Kool-Aid, that Felton should have caught the ball. Definitely that he should have caught the ball from JJ McCarthy. I shot you 99. Does Claiborne starting with the second team and getting that many reps mean anything? I think that it means that they want to see him, that they want to see a lot. That's the thing about like trying to pick apart what lineups mean and what reps mean is like a lot of times it's like, well, it means one thing for one guy and another thing for another guy. And with Damon Clay, it's not always like the order is perfectly laid out of if they come out first, then they're the guy. It's not always. It can be sometimes. But I think with Claiborne, they're very excited about the speed and agility and quickness and how fast he gets from 0 to 60. But they know that he needs a lot of work. So what do when a guy is very exciting from 0 to 60 and needs a lot of work? You give him a lot of work. And they gave him a lot of carries. I thought there were a few that were very demonstrative of his speed. And then there were others where you're like, yeah, if he runs directly into somebody, he is going down. And that is the issue with somebody like that. Comes from Wake Forest. I mean, it's, okay, program, but not exactly like Alabama or something. This is somebody that needs probably to put on some weight, put on some strength, and start, building some grown man strength where he can meet a safety in the hole and slam into that guy and run through him a little bit more than he can right now, where he's just out of college. And this is why I look at Claiborne as a promising player who is probably going to need some development time throughout this season, and also knowing where to run, how to get from place to place, but could be, a mix and match type of player every once in a while. The depth is a little concerning. I think that Xavier Scott probably would be the first man off the bench. Like, if Aaron Jones got hurt, you're playing Jordan Mason a ton and then Xavier Scott on third downs. I don't think you're using Damon Claiborne much outside of a couple of running downs where you can just pitch it to him or something like that. That's how I would say it would work out probably if there was a game today. I just think they want a lot of development from him and then kind of see where he's at. So, I mean, I think there's promise there for sure, but you have to be realistic about a 6th round draft pick. Like, there's a reason that he was. Braden, how early is it to buy a Chuck Demings jersey? I don't know, man. Like, you would be, if you show up to the stadium in that, you would be probably the first, other than his family or anyone who has followed training camp super closely. But I also think he's a good bet for the future. We just don't see guys, and he had another one today. We just don't see guys get pass breakups every single day in practice. I felt bad a little bit for everybody who tuned in that they didn't target him. PFF was listed at 1 target, but I don't think it was even that close to him, and he just kind of made the tackle. And I was like, oh, you guys didn't get to see him make a play on the football or something, or see him run a little bit, make a play downfield, because the Giants offense was a second and third team offense, wasn't doing so great. So, but I do think that he's a safe bet based on your character, your effort. Like, he's going to be a Viking for a while. Even if he doesn't turn out to be the next great starter, he's going to be a Viking for a while. Purple Kool-Aid, Darisaw is going to be 2 years removed from the injury. Staley, is that Joe Staley, needed 2 for his knee. Fry sounds like he's looking better for sure. Just seeing that one play from Christian Darisaw was big. Just seeing that one play was like, okay, yep. And he's looked really good in camp, but that's what I'm sure the confidence shot up after that. Aaron, could we see Dylan Bell switch positions to running back? Very possible. He is that kind of build. He did play some running back in college. I wouldn't be surprised. He does run well. You saw him. What do you have? A 17-yard carry. But I think we've seen him during practices get a little bit exposed as a wide receiver the more that he has practiced. So, yeah, I mean, that could happen. Usually you don't see a lot of guys just swapping positions. He's somebody that you like the jolt, you like the potential playmaking ability, but is probably a practice squad player because of that for right now. He just has not gotten a lot of reps. And then, he also has, had not a ton of great plays and catches during training camp either. I think he's a practice squad guy. There's something there, but it needs to be developed. Purple Kool-Aid, it's crazy now with both Kwesi and JJ that reporters seem to have heavily critical articles ready to go with sources within the building. Yeah, I did see that CBS article coming out, but I don't think that anything has been shocking, and I'm going to save it for tomorrow because I recorded a podcast with Tyler Dunn for tomorrow that I want you guys to listen to, where he talks about JJ, and it was probably the most revealing couple of things that he was told by players. But I also think that nothing should really shock us because we saw all of the things that people are talking about. We saw some of the potential that's still being discussed, and we also saw the issues with processing and so forth. I think that maybe the most surprising thing was when Tyler wrote that, players were kind of seeing it early and they still had a chance to maybe go to an Aaron Rodgers at that point, and they didn't do it, even if they were seeing it early. So, maybe there is, maybe there is some of that, but what usually happens with why stuff comes out later is that reporters, they don't have to, and this is true for myself as well. There's not like some obligation that as soon as you hear something from someone, you're like, oh, I'm going to tweet this like right now because I heard it. A lot of things get gathered in a notebook throughout time where you're like, there's smoke, but not enough to come out and say. And again, with McCarthy, I don't think it's mysterious. I really don't. I don't think there's some shocking reveal. This is the true reason why he didn't work out. It's like, well, he couldn't really throw it that well in college, and he can't really throw it that well now in the NFL. So I don't know. But maybe some of the stuff about how coachable he is or whatever else. Again, though, if the throws were great, maybe the coachability would not be discussed either. And so I've thought this has happened. It's happened to a lot of quarterbacks through history, and they reach a fork in the road, and they're either going to have a Ryan Tannehill type of journey and make it somewhere, or Alex Smith sticking with one team, or, they're not going to make it. Like, that's how it goes. You become a career backup. You become this kind of like Blaine Gabbert type person who's still in the NFL for a very long time, or Zach Wilson, but you just never really get to that level of being an NFL starting quarterback. But I think that's what happens. Also, you have people who are outside reporters who will like suddenly start to call everybody they know and try to get whatever they can. And then it comes out. So they weren't doing that before about JJ McCarthy. They were waiting until we got to this part. So, anyway, and I would not consider these articles to be hit pieces. I think that's really like a thing that doesn't happen in pro sports realm all that often. But I think what it is just sort of that a lot of people are trying to ask the question, what's going on? And here's the answers that they get, like the CBS piece or what Tyler Wright is like. These are reporters who start calling people and ask what happened, because something has gone on, which is that he didn't win a quarterback competition in his third year. And when a 10th overall draft pick who was a national champion doesn't win a quarterback competition, then you start to get a lot of questions. So Mike says, was listening to Judd today and can't help but agree that maybe the organization doesn't have the stomach to draft and develop a young quarterback. I mean, I don't really know. Is that because of McCarthy? I don't really know. Like, they were trying to do that, but their quarterback was one of the worst quarterbacks through 10 starts statistically over the last 15 years. I mean, what are they supposed to do? Is there a belief from, I'm really asking this question. I'm not even trying to be like critical of the question. I'm really asking this question. Like, is there a belief from people that if you just develop a quarterback forever, that they will eventually turn out to be great? Because I don't think that's true. I don't think that history would tell us that. The guys that we constantly reference, the reason there's only like 4 of them is because there's 50 other guys who have not worked out. You all know who they are. I mentioned Blaine Gabbert, the EJ Manuel, the Zach Wilson, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of quarterbacks who have just not worked out in the NFL. And they tried to set up the rookie quarterback contract with this roster build and go for JJ McCarthy. And guys, if it had worked, it would have been incredible. It was the exact right thing to do. They would have been if that worked out last year, they would have been a Super Bowl contender. The defense was playing at that level against Dallas, against Detroit, the receivers they have, everything else. Like, it was the right thing to do. But how long do you expect them to wait for this? He gets the injury. He doesn't play. To say he doesn't play well is like a massive understatement. And then this summer, 9 practices and some work with John Beck were not going to solve the problems of one of the worst starts through 10 games of any one of the last 15 years. I've run the numbers. He was 70th out of 84 in adjusted net yards per attempt for quarterbacks in their first 10 starts. 70th out of 84. Like, that's not something you can really roll with unless the guy takes some crazy big step forward. So do we expect Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips and Josh McCown and the Wilfs and everybody else to just say, sorry guys, we're going to sit around and just run this back year after year after year after year until this guy finally gets good? When? Is it ever? Do you know? And when you have this offensive setup, when you have these defensive players, you really think that they should just keep playing a quarterback that performed like that and didn't show major signs of improvement? Does that make any sense in any universe? It doesn't for me. So I see exactly why they've done what they've done. I don't think that that's proof that they can't draft a quarterback, but development is a lie. It is mostly a lie at the NFL level. Jaden Daniels was in the NFC Championship right away. Drake May was in the Super Bowl, and in the divisional round was Caleb Williams. And Bo Nix was in the AFC Championship and might have gone to the Super Bowl if he hadn't snapped his ankle. Those guys, they came out of college and within 2 years had a ton of success with their teams and met a certain type of level. Development just does not happen at the NFL level. There's not enough time. Look how fast this training camp went by, guys. Look how quick it was. It was 9 days in and you're like, well, they better do it now, because if they don't do it right now, then they're going to have no practice and then preseason game, and those don't matter anymore. And then joint practices, and then we're playing football. Like, there's no time. They don't have 2-a-day practices. They don't dedicate a single coach. Hey, go over and work with JJ and throw 100 balls with him a day. It doesn't work that way. So you have to come in very close to ready to be an NFL starting quarterback. It's just the reality if you're going to draft someone in the first round. And I think they believe that McCarthy's work ethic and his ability to make corrections on the fly would have resulted in him developing pretty quickly had he not got hurt and been set back to square one. But the fact that he was set back to square one, I think really ended up hurting JJ McCarthy and his chances to ever be a success, or at least quickly enough. He may develop over a number of years, but the idea that you have 4 years of a rookie contract, like there is not time to sit around for 10 years and develop. And then when he's 28, oh yeah, he made it. You've fired 3 coaching staffs and Justin Jefferson is in the Hall of Fame already, but hey, he made it. Like, you don't have time for that. Norse Force, sorry for the whiplash here, but goes to the punting competition. Is there still a competition for the punting job? I believe that there is. Johnny Hekker did not have a great season last year. I will say that he was in some tough circumstances playing for the Tennessee Titans. The guy was punting from his own end a lot more than Ryan Wright was. But, Brett Thorson can really boom that ball. I saw a couple of good punts from him today in practice, and I am not a great judge of, hey, was that exactly the punt that they were looking for in practice? But he did have some good punts and held the ball well for Will Riker. But that's the thing that is number one for me, is does he hold the ball well for Will Riker? And I think they're going to trust Johnny Hekker more. But I like what I've seen from Brett Thorson. BM says McCarthy's probably the 3rd best quarterback on the roster. Wentz isn't good, but I trust him in a few more games than 9. That's the way I would look at it too, is if you needed somebody to come off the bench for a single game, 2 games, I think I'd probably pick Carson Wentz at this point. But if you needed 8 games, and I know North Dakotans don't like this argument, but I think if you needed 8 games, you would want to play JJ McCarthy, because that would give you more of a sample of him performing for you. And he's under contract through next year, so you want to know exactly where he's at. Josh says, run game confidence. Yes. Am I completely convinced that they will suddenly be this dominant run team? Of course not. We have to see it first. But I'm being more convinced when you see a run like that. And I know it's preseason game, but nobody wants to get just completely smashed on the defensive line, which they did on 2 of those runs from the Vikings. And it would just add so much to this offense to not have to ask Kyler Murray to go throw 40 passes a game. Like, I think that he's been asked in the past to do that. Some of his better seasons are when his team does run the football effectively, or he has options out of the backfield. And I think they were actually intentional about the run game this offseason. They put a lot into it. And I also think Jordan Mason averages almost 5 yards a carry for his career, that we do need to look at him as someone who could get 1,000 yards on the ground. But, you can't give it complete confidence as of yet. It's BM. Snapping isn't that important for a center. You're funny. What round could we trade for a good center? That's the problem, Josh, is there just aren't any. No one is trading you a good center because there's there's probably only like 18 good centers in the league. They're honestly more rare than quarterback. I swear they are. Like there's a lot of guys who play center, but in terms of ones who are actually good, it's rare. There are not that many, and I don't know that anyone's trading you a center, but you might end up with a situation like, I suppose it's possible. Here would be the one possibility. If someone who is a veteran center lost a job in camp, then Garrett Bradbury last year, I didn't lose the job in camp, but they traded him away. So that is always possible. Rob says the Packers look terrible. I think that the rest of the division looks very suspect. You know what? I agree with you. That was in reference to the FanDuel question of the day, which all of the sudden the Vikings are favored now by 1.5 points, which I'm a little bit, surprised that that line has moved to the Vikings being favored. I agree that the Packers look like they got some issues. I'm Jason. Is there a past Vikings game that you enjoy watching over and over? For me, it's the comeback game versus the Colts. Josh, you're funny saying PFF is like trusting Madden grades because analytics people inside NFL teams use Madden ratings. They actually do. If you follow Ryan Pagnetti, who is on Twitter now, but has worked in the NFL, he's talked about this, like building models and stuff, like rating teams and using some of the Madden ratings over it, which is like very interesting that they would do that. But PFF is much more scientific. And if you want to read my book over my shoulder about the history of PFF and where the grades come from, you can. There are a lot of games that I watch. What I don't know that I watch one over and over for the Vikings because I'm always trying to find games that I've never seen before. I was going back to I'll go back to bad seasons for the Vikings and just pull up, hey, let me look at an 06 game. Let me look at an 08 game. There was one recently I was watching, Tavares Jackson versus the Packers in 08. So Minnesota Sports Pain. So I watch all of them. What does a normal day look for me? Well, it's, usually it's like I work on stuff in the morning and then I will go out to practice, gather as much as I can there, come back, jump on the pod, and then right after. So it's, I wouldn't say it's all that exciting of a normal day for me. Like you're kind of seeing it here. I haven't considered adding to the book. I feel like it's a nice kind of time capsule for where analytics were at the time, but maybe someday. Kay says quarterbacks within 3 weeks of camp like Ty Simpson, Drew Aller, Carson Beck, and others are playing better than JJ after 3 years. Yeah, he only threw 7 passes, but you're not wrong. Like this shouldn't be hard. There's a lot of quarterbacks who, against these vanilla defenses without a ton of pressure, have completed passes and looked fine, if not had very good performances. So I don't disagree with you. If you're playing against the twos, you should be able to perform pretty well. I just would have liked to have seen maybe a little more JJ McCarthy before we start saying like, oh, his preseason was so horrible that they can never play him, or whatever. I think that the practices not showing huge progress in practice has been better evidence of that, but you're not wrong that the preseason, you should put up some numbers. Mike is running with Brandel, the only center option, the same brand of coaching arrogance that has run with McCarthy last year. How about, you don't even have to go there. How about the backup center position last year where they didn't even train Brandel and then went, oh, gosh, I guess we've got to use Blake Brandel as the center. Like maybe should have worked on that throughout ever for him to be ready at the center position. Like he didn't take any reps during training camp and then just had to go do it. But I also think like when you go back and you look at the free agent centers, the available centers this year, there's just, other than Tyler Linderbaum, there are just not that many. Truly, there are just not that many. Mike, the run game appears legit. Now see if KOC keeps that page of the playbook past the 50-yard line. Yeah, it really comes down to him. I think if the offensive line is healthy, they are playing really well together as a unit. And, I don't think they have to replace Blake Brandel before the start of the season, but the snapping issues have to get better. It is like, what's the DEFCONs go down, right? Like DEFCON 5 is like not that bad of a DEFCON. Am I right about that? And then 1 is like the worst. So this would be like, if that's right, I don't know the def cons that well, but if 5 is the one that's not as bad and 1 is the worst one, it's probably like a 3, because we still are a few weeks out from the season, but it's probably like a 3. Like, you don't want to see any more of this. Let's see. Logan, when is ESPN's 30 for 30 dropping about what transpired between KOC's quote in 2024? Following the meniscus injury, we've got our franchise quarterback and where we're at today. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is I really, like, we've all watched this play out together. And I don't think anything that's been reported has shocked me or surprised me in any way, to be honest. I mean, I just think that what happened was O'Connell was very excited about the tools that JJ McCarthy had shown in practice. It was not like in 2024 camp that he was just Drew Brees out there. It was the arm strength really pops off the page and still does to this day. When he lets one rip like he did today to Miles Price, you're like, man, this guy can throw the ball freaking hard. He's got a great arm. He's got really good athleticism. The tools are there. And I think in that 2024 training camp, he was really, really good at learning and developing and being kind of in his right spot of, I'm behind Sam Darnold, but I'm going to get better every single day. There was no pressure whatsoever. We have to remember that there was no pressure whatsoever in 2024 training camp for JJ McCarthy. It was just get better every day, show a little more command every day, and just get bigger. Just like let your growth get bigger and bigger every single day, get closer and closer to being a starting quarterback every single day. And that's where they were at. They were excited about that. But then when you just pull the e-brake entirely, go to 0 for 6 months, you're not even throwing a football. And then it's, oh yeah, wait, take the e-brake off, push the gas all the way to the ground. And maybe there were some podcasters who warned folks about this, but nobody listened. And it is like, oh, all of a sudden you got to be a franchise quarterback and you have to take on all the pressures and all the offense and everything that goes along with that. It's really, really hard to do for a player that needed development. And McCarthy was not ready for it, and then goes in, gets banged up. Maybe he would have been better if he didn't get banged up 4 separate times in his first year. So the development hours on task are so limited because of the number of injuries. Like, I really think that what it came down to was this team believed that they could just do it again. We did it with Sam Darnold. We'll just do it again. Our supporting cast is so great that we'll just take another quarterback and we'll just plug him in and we'll do the same thing because we're Shanahan. And that's what Shanahan has done. Shanahan took Jimmy Garoppolo and then he put in Brock Purdy, and then there you go. Off you go. Brock Purdy's just as good, if not better, than Jimmy Garoppolo. 2 different quarterbacks. We could do the same thing. Why pay a quarterback when we can get rid of one and then plug in our young guy? But they guessed wrong. And that's it. And McCarthy wasn't ready. And the things that are issues for him are hard to fix. It's hard to fix processing when you haven't seen as many passes as Kyler Murray. Nowhere close, not even remotely close. It's not easy to fix your accuracy when you had to miss all that practice last year. You had to miss all those games last year. Like, it's not easy to fix accuracy in a single summer. It's just not. So, I think that that's kind of what it comes down to. I don't really think it's a 30 for 30. I think it's just like, this is some unfortunate breaks and then some realities and then some far over belief in themselves and their own ability to plug a quarterback into their system and have it succeed, because what they forgot was 2 things. I mean, number one is that until a quarterback's played, you have no idea what it's going to look like in real games. And the other thing is chaos theory, that you didn't know that your left tackle was going to get hurt and not be able to come back, or whatever it was that happened with Darisaw numerous times. You didn't know that Justin Jefferson was going to suffer an injury in training camp. You didn't know that Adam Thielen wasn't going to have it anymore. You didn't know that you did know that Jordan Addison was going to be suspended, but you know what I mean? So, a lot went wrong there. I'm going to stick to the chats. I don't actually know how to do a call-in show with my setup, but I'm going to stick to the chats because I can have a little more control of what's going on, I think. As you can see from the chat, it's not always sane. We try to work through it, though. The trade for the Cardinals center. They lost an offensive lineman in the preseason, and they got Jeremiah Love hurt. Great job there. Mads and Music. Yeah, the Lions, their center got hurt. It's a great point. Their center got hurt, Cade Mays. They're on their third center. And that's the thing. It's so hard to find those centers, and they went out and had to overpay one, and then he got hurt, and now they're in another backup. It's like, there's just not that many out there. You usually do have to kind of draft them or get lucky. Mike Brando will be fine if he could snap the ball, but otherwise, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. And that's my point, where today was, up until now, I've gone like, okay, man, like, let's get that ball snapped out there. And today it was like, okay, dude, what the heck? Like, that one today was just rolling it back there. Thanks, Greg, for, hit the support or hit the thumbs up button. Would love that. The likes and the thumbs ups and all that stuff. It helps people find the show. So if you do get a chance to do that, and we did get over 16,000 subscribers. I know that I'd had a few of you guys pushing for that. That's a great number. Really proud of that. And hopefully we can get a few more, but I've been absolutely thrilled with how many of you guys have shown up on a nightly basis. The chat, like, I'm having trouble keeping up with how fast it's moving, which is always a great feeling to have so many people interacting. So definitely appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that. Tom, I agree. You got to fix it. Or they're going to have to consider something else. But Michael Juergens to me is just not a great option. Madsen says, we talk about it because it's a wild story. I know KOC hates the story, but it's almost a 30 for 30. Well, the 30 for 30 is, if we're being honest here, the 30 for 30 is Sam Darnold, and the Vikings drop in for a year. And then everybody has to give their interviews to ESPN about why they let him go. And then what you'll have is everybody retelling their version of the story of, I saw Albert Breer in his article today sort of said, well, the Vikings, they wanted Darnold or Daniel Jones back. And, Breer does a great job with his writing about this team. So not disparaging him at all, but they made what appeared to be a courtesy offer to Sam Darnold. They made no legitimate attempt to bring back Sam Darnold. And I know that certain people have said, well, it was obviously Kwesi's fault. And you think, yeah, well, everyone is responsible for that, right? Everyone. The coach of the year, the quarterback whisperer, the owner. Hey, the owner pulls the final lever too. So I have not criticized the Wilfs very much because of how great of owners they are for this franchise when it comes to the players and the facilities and everything else, and how badly they want to win is not a criticism for me, even though I think there's been some missteps trying too hard to win on a given year. But hey, they're involved as well in making the decision, and Kwesi was involved. And when you make that huge of a mistake, you deserve to lose your job in pro sports. Like when you make one of the worst front office moves in the history of the National Football League of letting go Darnold and going to McCarthy, yeah, you deserve it. But everybody involved's got to wear it. Everyone has to wear it. So I don't know that the 30 for 30 is that interesting, other than you would get maybe 5 different versions of the same story of, well, I spoke up in that one meeting, that kind of thing. There was one podcaster that we talked to, and he said, you should have seen the comment section when I suggested that they should maybe bring back Sam Darnold on the franchise tag. Son of Beavers, how is the punting battle going? I thought it was a good day for Thorson in the game. That's what it really comes down to is the game. And he may have out-punted the coverage on one of them, or maybe the coverage was just kind of slow. I don't know that. But holding, if he can hold, I just don't know if I want an inexperienced holder. I know that's a tough thing for it to come down to, but just don't know if you want that. Son of Beavers, do you see the Vikings signing a veteran edge at some point? I do. I just don't know which one. I don't even know of those guys who are free agents, which one of those guys actually even want to play, because they could be in the Harrison Smith current position of just like, I'm not playing, but or until a certain date, or like we don't even know, right? It's not like Leonard Floyd has announced on his social media, I will be signing with a team. Whoever wants, like, none of these guys have said anything. I think Hassan Reddick tweets sometimes. Maybe he'll come out and say, that he wants to be with the team. I don't know if their agents have made it clear to teams that they're waiting, but like it's getting late. So this would be about the time players like that sign. The fact that they haven't, I don't know if it means that they're not going to come out or not. Mike says, tired of always picking development projects. Why can't we ever get day one contributors? I assume you're talking about Caleb Banks when it comes to that. And they had, I think, two directions they could have gone. Now, Peter Woods seemed like he was a safer pick, and he looked every bit as bad as Caleb Banks in his first preseason action. I saw some Kansas City folk breaking that down, and it was like, oh, wow. And I never saw even the flashes with Peter Woods. That was one that I was like, I don't do that. Like that guy, he's a great athlete on paper, but just never to me had it at Clemson. But, you know, Caleb Banks, we've seen flashes in practice. You see flashes on his college tape, like it's there. But the choice was basically you go with a lesser prospect, and maybe a wide receiver would have been in the mix at that point. You go with a lesser ceiling prospect to get them on the field quicker, or you go with somebody who is going to take a little longer, but they could be better. So if you are, I mean, there's guys like this all over the place. Like the Ravens had one, Odafe Owe, and they let him go. He's in Washington now, but he was an example. He was like this. The first year was the second year, oh, that's better. And the third year, the guy's awesome. And they decided they weren't going to pay him. Probably that Lamar contract is a little limiting, but it was a good example. And unfortunately, that might happen. The thing is, though, with the defensive tackle, it even happened with Dexter Lawrence. Like Dexter Lawrence's first couple years are okay, but he wasn't getting a lot of sacks and pressures. And then like the light goes on and he turns into a great player. The thing is, Brian Flores has always been comfortable with that. I know it's hard as fans to be comfortable with that. But if you get a great defensive tackle, these guys play until they're 35 years old. Like DeForest Buckner is still out there. Like if you get a good one, he will be with your franchise for freaking ever. Vita Vea is 31 years old. So just like with quarterback, he doesn't have till 31 to be good. But if it takes time, then like that's okay. I do understand where you're coming from though. Like Dallas Turner needed development, but most rookies do. I mean, they're not drafting in the top 5. And if they're drafting in the top 5, then you can come in right away and potentially be a starter. But it doesn't happen that often in the NFL where somebody comes in and is just amazing right away. Except for Chuck Demings. Minnesota Sports Pain says percentage chance Chucky D makes CB3. It's weird for me to hear someone referred to as Chuck D because I listened to Public Enemy like when I was growing up and as a teenager and stuff, and still sometimes. And so it's like, no, Chuck D is the guy from Public Enemy. So like, huh? But anyway, not the point. Percentage chance, I would go like 40% chance. I mean, I think week 1, James Pierre is going to be the guy who's next man up. But if Isaiah Rodgers got hurt or something, do you want James Pierre playing 15 games? Probably not. I mean, Demings is a really good athlete. Pierre is nowhere close to Chuck Demings when it comes to athleticism. Pierre is a guy who has just squeezed out every bit of blood out of the stone of his talent from just fighting his butt off, being super coachable, taking every special teams role. Chuck Demings is a great athlete, like comes in off the bus. Very, very impressive. So I'm not sure. I mean, initially I thought we're probably going to see a lot of James Pierre, but now I do wonder if that could be the case. It would be surprising, but the best man is going to play with Brian Flores. Let me allow me just a second to, and we'll speed up on some of the comments. I did want to get to this ESPN thing real quick because some of you love looking big picture, and they did a big picture article, but I want to remind you of two things. Number one is the FanDuel question of the day is the Vikings are now favored by 1.5 points over the Green Bay Packers for week 1. That is a change from a couple of weeks ago. Has your confidence gone up or down in this team since camp started? And I also want to tell you about my friends at Brooklyn Betting. I've mentioned it before, but you know, the back has not been great over the last couple of years. And maybe one of the reasons is I had a foam mattress that I was just probably not getting very good sleep on. And the Aurora Lux mattress from Brooklyn Bedding has been a life changer for me. Have you noticed the energy? There's been a lot of it throughout this training camp, and I wouldn't have it if I couldn't sleep very well, which was a big problem before I got this mattress. So their mattresses are great. It was cost effective, but just built very solid, very intentional. Feels like it's built to last right here in the USA. And they did a great job of finding exactly what I was looking for how soft the mattress is and how I sleep and how I need to sleep with the back issues and so forth, and able to get exactly what we wanted. They can even do hard to find sizes if that's what you need. And with Brooklyn Bedding, I'm not going to need to swap or return the mattress. I'm keeping this thing for a long time, but there is a 120-night comfort trial. If you are not comfortable, you could swap or return the mattress hassle-free. So it's been a life changer for me, and now it can be for you as well with their back-to-school sale. BrooklynBedding.com, use the promo code PURPLE, 30% off site-wide. So even if you're not looking for a mattress, anything on BrooklynBedding.com, 30% off with the promo code PURPLE. So let me get back to your comments. All right. And yeah, so maybe in like 15, 20 minutes, I'll jump to this ESPN article because it kind of stood out to me about the bigger picture. You're right, Son of Beavers. Good example of Willie Beavers was cut as a 4th round pick. I don't remember any 3rd rounder getting cut though. So I think Jacoby Thomas will be on. Vikings STW, JJ threw a dime on Demings today. Good coverage, better throw. Yeah, he had a couple good throws today. Yep, maybe that's the Miles Price one you're talking about. He did have a couple good throws today. It was a better day. I'm not doing who's winning the backup quarterback competition every day. It's just not. I just can't do that. But I think that McCarthy had a better day than Carson Wentz for sure today, after Wentz had the better game than McCarthy. So how much each one of those things matters, I do not know. Let's see. B. Jeezy says, what should we be looking for in the joint practices? I mean, the main thing is just how well, this is going to sound shocking to you, but how well the offense executes. I mean, that's number one to me. This is Jesse Minter. His defense is good, and they may not throw everything at the Vikings, but they're going to be going hard. These practices are always very competitive. So how does Kyler look in this environment where they're coming after him? And he's got to really run that offense on a play-to-play basis against a different opponent. I mean, his series against the Giants was more about seeing if he could tie his shoes correctly and put a helmet on than it was like really running an offense. So this will be 2 days of really running the offense. Can they look sharp? Can they get completions consistently? And I think I'll be looking for a lot of, can they run the ball against another team? How does that look in practice? Do they look like they're getting overwhelmed by the Ravens D-line, or does it look like they're moving bodies and getting to the outsides, cutting up field and getting big gains? Those are the things that I'm going to be looking at really there. And then specifically, like on the defensive side, how do some of these younger players react? It's a little bit hard to watch both at the same time. Usually they're on 2 different fields, and I'll be looking more at the offense and tracking the offense, but on the defensive side, and we'll see if we can get Dane Mizutani to watch over in the defense a little more so he can report on that on the show as well. But I'm curious about Charles Demings, how it looks against another team. I'm curious about Levi Drake and with Ty Ingram Dawkins, and just how those guys look going up against Lamar Jackson, one of the best players in the NFL over the last 20 years. Like, how does that look? Because that's going to give us a little more of a tell of what does this look like during the season. Against Drake May, they did really well last year. And when they were healthy against good quarterbacks, they did really well in the real games. So I think that will tell us something, but I will be looking for also how the reps at quarterback, backup quarterback are divvied up a little bit. Like, does Carson Wentz get in there with the 2s? How do the receivers respond? Like, Felton didn't need that drop in the preseason game, but it shouldn't end his career. Like, does he kind of bounce back a little bit, get involved with the second team unit? Do they use him a little bit with the 1s to mix and match? There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. It'll be a very exciting time. Madsen, is KOC on the hot seat? The way that I've looked at it is no, that he is not on the hot seat. I look at hot seat as if you miss the playoffs, you are absolutely fired. And even if you make the playoffs, you might be fired. that would be like Todd Bowles. And I also look at hot seat as like your team has been down for quite some time and it just hasn't happened. And like things are kind of toxic and it's not a good situation. Like that to me is Tampa Bay. Like they are ready to fire a coach in Tampa Bay if it doesn't work out this year. I think that when we talk about KOC, there is a foundation that's been built that's very strong here that has to be very, very strongly considered from the Wilfs when they think about this. Like you have to really, truly believe that there is greener grass with somebody else. And unless this thing goes really, really pear-shaped, I have a tough time thinking that. Like, that they'll look at it and go, no, somebody else can do a much better job. I mean, the fact that they were a winning team last year, the fact that, O'Connell, when he's had his starting quarterback, has been overwhelmingly successful. Flores has been a big part of this as well. Well, that's his defensive coordinator. I assume that Flores would keep his job if you moved on from the head coach, but I don't know. Like, I don't know how that would play out. He's really enjoyed working with KOC. The players have. I think he has put a lot of players in a position to be successful. Justin Jefferson, mainly. Like these are really important things. How the building operates under the head coach. I mean, that guy is responsible for so many things you don't even understand. It's hard to do. And that's why most coaches get fired and fail. So I don't think the Wilfs are being short-sighted about this. But they did say patience doesn't last forever. So that's the way I'll probably always answer that question until we start seeing games and seeing results and so forth, is that there is no reason to think that you would want to make a move there. But as they said, patience doesn't last forever. So there's always scenarios. You don't want to say that there's no scenario whatsoever where these things could happen. Kay says right now, KOC and Teasley are trying to con a team into trading for JJ. There's no benefit to playing him more. Oh, is that why you think that they didn't play him more? Is that they're just trying to kind of like keep him under wraps, that it hasn't gone well? Everybody knows the deal. If you're trading for JJ McCarthy, you're doing it because you have no backup situation, or you're doing it because you have no future situation and you might as well. Like, might as well give up a 5th rounder. We were going to spend that on a long snapper, so it's fine. Those are the only two scenarios for another team where they would do it. Minnesota Sports Pain expectations for Damon Claiborne, only playing if Jones gets injured, or will he have specific packages and football? Thank you for throwing that in there. I think that at this moment, kick returning is a pretty serious option for him. Price being the main kick returner, him being sort of the KR2, which I'm glad that's back in the NFL. I'm glad the KR2 is back. That's where I see it right now, is he would be the kick returner, and then in case of emergency, but maybe there's 3 plays a game where he's in, where he could be a potential threat. I'm not even sure that's the case. I think that you might do it if you were up by like 14 points and you're looking for a home run. Like, put this one away in the 3rd quarter. Let's throw Damon Claiborne out there, see if we could pitch him the ball and have him run for 50 yards. I just don't think he's going to be there right now. And I know that we talked about like, yeah, like we're tired of projects. We want players right now. Give me these rookies. But all of them, especially day 3 guys, are going to take some time to be fully ready. And I think Claiborne is like that, but I wouldn't be shocked if we see him. Definitely wouldn't be shocked if we can see him. Can Poyer still run? I don't know. Didn't look like it the last time I saw him, but maybe. I mean, they have Jamal Adams here before, so like, I don't know. They've got to be at least investigating any of those guys that we were talking about, guys who have bounced around the league at safety, unless they've just sort of stumbled into Jacob Thomas being a guy that can actually play. I think he kind of can. That's what it's looked like so far, is that he can play, but he's not a veteran. Mike, D-line concerns me after the game. Banks looks like he will be a non-factor this year, and I don't trust Turner to fill in Grenard's role given his lack of play strength. I would say that Turner to me looks continually from last year bigger and stronger than he did last season. So that's one thing, is I have been impressed with his growth as just a human being, getting stronger and stronger each year. You got to remember, he has not turned 24 yet. There's guys now all the time coming out into the NFL who are 24 when they get to the NFL. He is turning 24 in February. That's how young Dallas Turner is. So he's just getting bigger and bigger. So I think that he can match Grenard's. I mean, Grenard is especially strong, but I think he can match that. And we can't treat Grenard like he was Bruce Smith. I mean, he's a really, really good player, but like he wasn't the greatest run defender on the edge either. But they play, the outside linebackers, the 3 defensive ends. They've got 5 up there. Like that's going to give them a better chance to stop the run. But in terms of the, Banks being a non-factor, I wouldn't go that far yet based on one preseason game. I would say that he looked like he is going to be less of a factor than maybe we expected when he was drafted, where we were saying, all right, well, this is the fill-in for Javon Hargrave and the fill-in for, Jonathan Allen or whatever. And then Hargrave is Dominique Orange and it's a little bit of a change and off we go. And that has not proven out to be the case. These other guys who have developed are more ready for those roles at this moment. But I don't want to just say, hey, this one game, like if the next game Banks comes out and makes some adjustments and then has, a couple of pressures and throws some guy aside and makes a play. Well, oh yeah. Like this is what the preseason is for guys to get their feet wet, and playing 24 snaps or 25 after he had only had limited reps up to this point. Like that's a lot to ask for him right away. So it wasn't good. There's no question it was not good. But I also think we don't need to go too far when it comes to that. Let's see. Leonard says the topic was that college success doesn't guarantee NFL success. Not sure what you guys have gotten yourselves into with the chat, but I totally agree with you that, college success, a lot of the conversation still around JJ McCarthy is like, well, he was a national champion. It's like, that was a long time ago now in the NFL world. First name, last name. What is Miles Price's ceiling at wide receiver? Could he be a future 2? I would be very surprised if he could be a future 2. You never know. I mean, I would have said about Adam Thielen back in 2013 or something. I would have been like, okay, let's just let him do something as a wide receiver first. And then he turns into a Ring of Honor guy. There's something about the guy, and it's really hard to put your finger on, where if you see a basketball player who just scores, you don't really know why. Like, I don't know. The guy's not the fastest. He's not the biggest, or the woman is not the fastest or the biggest in the WNBA. They just score. Miles Price is kind of like that. Like, I look at him and go, he's kind of a undersized guy, looks more like a running back just in his body build. But Julian Edelman was great. Cole Beasley, like those kind of guys that are quick and they're smaller. Jarius Wright was kind of this way. What was he, a 4th round draft pick? Not the highest draft pick. Sometimes somebody just balls out. I don't know why. Like they get out on the field and you give them a chance to make plays and they do. Miles Price kind of seems like that kind of guy. He got the ball in his hands as a kick returner and just ran forever and dodges tackles. And I don't know. There's no real explanation for it. The guy could just play. So I think the ceiling is probably a wide receiver 3. That he could be a wide receiver 3 slot guy, like maybe Brandon Powell, but a little bit stronger. Like maybe add like 20 pounds to Brandon Powell, that kind of player. So I wouldn't set the bar super high, but the guy catches the ball, makes plays. Matt says, no offense to CJ Ham, but Max Bredesen looks the part in there helping with the run game. Yeah, of course. I mean, you guys know the level of respect for one-time guest of this show and many time quoted in articles of mine, probably too much for his liking, CJ Ham. Love the fact that he was able to carve out a decade-long career. The difference is, I think, physical between the two, where CJ Ham fought and clawed to be in the NFL. He is not an out-of-the-box fullback. Like, he had to work super hard to even have his body in the type of shape to take the punishment to be a fullback. Whereas Max Bredesen, as soon as you see him, you're like, who is this? I don't want to say defensive lineman, but like, who is this run-stuffing linebacker? Like, he has the same body as Ben Gideon, if you remember him. That's who he looks like. This 245-pound dude that's built like a rectangle, that's just wide and has huge shoulders and has good movement skill and very high football IQ, which I think has shown up in the amount that they've asked him to do so far. And like, yeah, I can see why they drafted him, because he's going to make a difference for sure. Um, Greg says many moving parts, but JJ will be with another team within 10 days. Could happen. If they trade him away, I think what it will say is simply this, that they saw all they needed to see and they just didn't believe that there was going to be much more to this. And that's fair. I mean, if you get to that point as a team, then we've seen a lot of teams bail on quarterbacks at this point in their careers and maybe feeling like JJ just needs a different opportunity. I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not necessarily for it because I think that you might need him in a game at some point. He knows your offense and he can scramble and he can hit deep passes. And even if he goes 10 for 20 and runs for 30 yards and a touchdown or something and hits 3 or 4 passes downfield, like it gives you a chance versus a backup quarterback who doesn't know your system versus Cooper Rush. Like, I mean, if they go out and get Cooper Rush, like, I don't know, man. I think JJ McCarthy would have had probably a better chance to win a football game than Cooper Rush. So I don't have any issue with them continuing to keep him on the team. He's under contract. It's not that expensive, but if everybody's done with each other, then yeah, make a move. He's been fine in practice. I thought that the first, couple of days, like, or, is he still as locked in, or am I just kind of looking for it? And then the game didn't go very well. Today, I thought a good practice. So I don't know. As long as he's still engaged, as long as he's still locked in and focusing on his development, I don't see a reason to get rid of him. Caleb, how good would Dylan Thieneman have to look now at safety, position of need as a solid start? Oh, how good would he look right now? Need players to contribute and win with the first round draft pick. So there's like 2 parts of me here. One is that Jacob Thomas has looked pretty good. And that's sort of the point. Like, Jacob Thomas plays the same position as Dylan Thieneman. I'm not saying he's as good as Dylan Thieneman, who's a first round draft pick, but you're like, these guys seem to show up a lot. The post safety, they call them sometimes, like the free safety, the deep safety. Like, there are a lot of those guys who are out there. You can get them. They drafted Jacoby Thomas to be that kind of thing. I think a Harrison Smith is really hard to replace. I think the strong safety, the box safety, the true special talent is hard to replace. I don't think Dylan Thieneman was playing that with the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think he's playing it with anybody. He is not that guy. He's not big enough to come down and play in the box. I know he did in college. Tell me again he did in college, but like, that's not the NFL. I think you need to be bigger, stronger, like, to be at that position. So I think he's more of a free safety. And I just think you can find players like that. Now, would that at this very moment, him or Emmanuel McNeil-Warren at this very moment look better than having Caleb Banks? Possibly at this very moment. But that's why we talk about needing 3 years to see how a draft plays out. But look, I mean, the thing that I was concerned about with Caleb Banks was you're coming off an injury and you didn't produce in college. Like, there is a concern there. I'm just saying, we need to see more time with this guy to start making determinations than just this one preseason game. Like, we way overrate preseason games for what they actually say about young players. My favorite example of all time is Ryan Leaf outperforming Peyton Manning in a preseason game. It did happen. So, let's see. Look for another question or two, and then I want to get to this ESPN article. So sorry if I didn't get to everybody. Jared says, worrisome that Banks is the same as college, dominating or getting dominated. Yeah. I mean, now I think that's fair. Yeah. Like, as you said, not time to panic or anything, but it is noteworthy that he kind of either throws somebody and he, I think, mentioned after the game trying to jump some gaps or whatever, and or shoot a gap. That's not really going to be the job, I think, for Caleb Banks. Sometimes it might be just to move someone, and he's got to show that he can do that. And it's also, when they send 2 guys at you, you have to be able to handle them. You've got to stop them in place. You got to get leverage if you're a defensive tackle. That's the main goal. Because if you can just even stalemate and not get moved back at all, not get moved in general, like, you're winning. That for the defensive player is winning. A stalemate is a win for the defensive player. And he was getting moved back too much. And that did happen in college because I think it's an issue with the height. If you are an offensive lineman and you're 6'3", and he's 6'6", like your hands shoot right up into the middle of the guy, right? As opposed to it's kind of like more of an even battle with a defensive tackle that's more like 6'3". So it's gonna take some development, I think, for him to figure out how to deal with that at the NFL level. But it is his first run at it for playing football in a really long time. 1216 Vivek. You said you're hoping that they were going to sign Von Miller. I just don't think, when you're asking about the free agent, we went through the outside linebackers, but when you're like free agent centers, I just don't think there's too many that exist. Ryan Bates and James Daniels were brought up, but I mean, I don't know where those guys are at with their careers. But Von Miller did kind of seem like this would be sort of like Jamal Adams showing up. Only the performance last year from Von Miller was good enough to get a lot of sacks. And that's all you're looking for from one of those guys. There's pressures and sacks. That's it. So I'll still say that Leonard Floyd is the best guy to go for. Melkill, do they have the stomach to trade Addison for a chance at a quarterback? Oh, you mean like next year for a chance to draft a quarterback? I don't know. I think that is possible. Yes. They were willing to trade in Seattle DK Metcalf. So are you willing to trade Addison? Depends on, just depends on where you're at, right? Like if you're talking about the future draft, actually, this is a good transition into this article. If you're talking about the future draft, where do they stand and how far do they need to move up? Because what was it? Kansas City, how far did they move up to take Patrick Mahomes? Was it like 20-10? And do they have to give up? I don't remember the exact trade, but they had to make a move to get up into the top 10. I don't think it's that hard if you are 18th, 21st to get up into that top 10 type of area. I think it's really hard to get up in the top 5. Like no one is going, and they tried to do this in 2023 reportedly to try to get Anthony Richardson, and only God knows what would have happened then. But I mean, maybe they were offering like a couple of first round picks or something. Teams do not want to give up those high draft picks, those super high picks. So it may come down to how the draft plays out. It's supposed to be a very good draft next year. What does that mean? I don't know. But there's supposed to be a number of quarterback prospects. But we are just so far away from knowing this that I don't even know how to talk about it when it comes to the future of drafting a quarterback, because we have no idea how this year is going to go. We have no idea how Kyler's going to look. We have no idea where they're going to draft or what anything's going to look like. It's always ideal to be able to draft a quarterback and build the roster around them. We know that though. That's always the number one option if you can. And it's not always a great idea to, like try to draft a quarterback in the second round and develop him. It does not work very well historically. So let's take a look at this article because it caught my eye here where ESPN did their future power rankings from the years 2027 to 2029. I mean, this is ready-made for some of you folks who love to look out deep into the future. I'm not mocking you. I mean, I love that you guys are roster building for 2027 and beyond. So I was curious about where ESPN's panel of Aaron Schatz, Ben Solak, Louis Riddick, and Seth Walder, so 2 analytics people, an analyst, and a former NFL player on this group, and where they put the Vikings. So the panel of experts was asked to, trying to stop the ad there, it's not working. They were asked to rate each team's quarterback situation, remaining roster, front office, and coaching staff on a 1 to 100 scale, but 50 or below is an F. So A+ is at 100, and then, so forth and down. So let's see what they did with the Minnesota Vikings. Here's how they scored them: 18th overall best score. And they scored the overall roster, excluding the quarterback, 15th in the league. I think that's probably fair. The offensive side, very, very strong. Defensive side, roster-wise, has questions. The quarterback situation, 27th. I also think that's fair because we have no idea what Kyler is going to be. And it's for the future. So is he going to be their quarterback or not? If you have no idea and you don't think it's McCarthy, 27th is fine. Coaching, they put it 4th. That would be O'Connell and Flores combined. I think as far as duos go, calling them a top 5 duo is, I think, right. You can have your criticisms of Kevin O'Connell. Every head coach has them. And often deserves them. But I mean, if you combine the two coaches, offense and defense, Flores and O'Connell, it's got to be somewhere in the top 10, but top five's not crazy. And 15th for front office, we don't really know. I mean, that's just a huge question mark of what Nolan Teasley is going to do with the front office. And in terms of reason for hope that they gave, it was the coaching staff. Reason for concern is the quarterback situation. And the bold prediction is that Kyler Murray is going to be, this is from Seth Walder, their longer term quarterback. He says through at least 2029. That is a bold prediction, and says the team might be hesitant to let another established signal caller walk out the door after what happened to Sam Darnold. Well, one thing I would say about that is, so where I don't exactly agree is that the team was not run by Nolan Teasley when they let Sam Darnold go. So also Nolan Teasley's team let go a quarterback in Geno Smith before signing Sam Darnold. So I'm not sure if that truly plays into it. What you would do as a front office is make an assessment that is based entirely on your circumstances, entirely on Kyler Murray himself as a quarterback, with nothing else to do with anybody else. Chasing your losses, as you guys who, gamble would know, that that's not a good idea, right? Oh, well, man, I screwed up this one loss, so I'm not betting on this game, or I'm going to do that. Like, you don't want to chase your losses. That's always a bad idea. You don't want to base a decision that's entirely different based on one that you made in the past. The big mistake of the Sam Darnold decision was that the team was ready to win. If the Vikings had been a bad team and Sam Darnold had sort of dragged them to 8 or 9 wins, and they were bad, they were rebuilding, they were trying to just rebuild the roster, then it would have made total sense to move on from him and have, this is sort of Arizona moving on from Kyler Murray. Like, why have Kyler Murray here when we can rebuild the roster from scratch, get another high draft pick a quarterback next year? Like, why would you have Kyler win 7 or 8 games for you? That doesn't make any sense, right? And the same thing would have gone for letting Sam Darnold go to JJ McCarthy. Would be like, why pay Sam Darnold when your team's not ready to win? However, it went the other way. They were ready to win. They did put together a top-notch defense, and they had the weapons and everybody else, the veteran players. They kept all the veterans. They re-signed all their guys, Byron Murphy, Aaron Jones. And I also think that the production for the money they spent on DT and guard, they could have gotten cheap and been okay and gotten the same production. And Sam Darnold would have given them a chance to seriously compete if he played even relatively close to what he did in 2024. So anyway, a long way of saying that after 2026, this could be different. They could be looking at themselves. Let's say they lose Van Ginkel. Let's say they lose Isaiah Rodgers and they want to put Chuck Demings in there. Let's say that they lose Blake Cashman, who's a great player. Let's say that they trade away Jordan Addison because they don't want to give him a contract extension. You are looking at a very different landscape than you would have been going into 2025. So you have to make the decision differently. Now, if this team looks like it's about to be great and you try to find a way, if they're in the divisional round and they lose, I don't know, on a last second play or something, a fumbled punt return, I don't know, whatever, to the Chicago Bears in overtime of the divisional round, they're going to look like this team is right there. And yeah, maybe you want to keep Kyler, but you have to make the decision based on the situation now, not what happened before. And I mean, it would be very surprising if Kyler Murray was the team's quarterback over multiple years, but I would also say it's not impossible based on what we've seen of him running the offense, based on what we've seen of him getting Kevin O'Connell's system, the way those two are working together. It wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world if it worked out and they were competitive with Kyler Murray. So I think that being 18th here means that they're one of the most up in the air teams for the future in the entire NFL. And that's kind of how I would look at them. Is we have no idea what the front office is. We have no idea what the quarterback situation is. And we kind of have no idea what the season's going to be, even though, you know, everybody that I have had conversations with has felt like this should be a playoff team. Even today, you know, as they're doing their walkthrough period and we're kind of chatting, like most of the folks covering the team and kind of looking around, watching camp this year, seeing some of the development, the depth, the coaching that they have on the defensive side and going, this team should be a playoff team. But every year offers you a whole new set of questions of where this thing is going to go. So I think they're one of the hardest teams to project, but it was a fun thing that they did on ESPN. So check out that entire article over there. So anyway, sorry if I didn't get to all the comments. Let me super fast scroll and see if there's anything I wanted to get into before I wrap up the show. And then tomorrow, sorry, sometimes I get to the point where I know I was ranting about something and you guys are reacting. Okay, first name, last name. Did Claiborne pop in pass protection at all? I think he had like 2 reps. I don't think there were very many reps, but he did make one cut block that worked out well. If he can earn, I mean, look, they're not throwing the blitzes at him right now. If he can earn some trust, that would be really big for him. Probably in practice is where they're getting a better look at that though. So, okay, well, anyway, why isn't Theo Jackson more of a deep safety than Metellus? He is. Theo Jackson is the deep safety. Metellus, though, like they play a lot of 2 deep safeties. So, like Theo Jackson is that position. He is the free safety, and Metellus is going to be up in the box more often. But just as a defense in general, like they play 2 deep safeties a lot. They try to like flip different ways into doing that, like bring up the safety and then have a corner drop into that spot, and the safety plays in coverage to throw off the quarterback. They find lots of different ways to do it, to play 2 deep. They'll run a linebacker back there and kind of do a Tampa 2 type thing. Like they're very creative in the way they do it, but Theo kind of has more of that position, if that makes sense. Mr. Mayor. Oh yeah. Good idea. Good idea. When you're talking about Mina Kimes had Carmen Vitale on. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. She's a friend of the show. Got to get her back sometime soon. A NFC North expert for sure. Good friend. She's very good at her job. That is a good suggestion. And, you know, there will be like Tyler Dunn's going to come on tomorrow, but now that like things are loosened up a little bit, we'll get back to a little more guest rotation, because like in the live shows will obviously continue, but during the training camp portion, there's just like so much going on all the time. Okay. Well, anyway, so Hunter says wanting Daniel Jones back made it sound even worse. You mean to tell me that they were going to let a Super Bowl winning quarterback go for Daniel Jones? I think they make the playoffs with Daniel Jones. I don't think there's any question, but I think the whole point about the Daniel Jones thing is there was no competition for JJ McCarthy at all. So, all right. Well, great stuff, guys. Really appreciate the conversation as always. So tomorrow, look forward to the Tyler Dunn interview. Also, if you didn't catch my conversation with Emily Liker, really fun time of what we're looking for in the joint practices and going forward. And Tyler's going to break down his article on JJ McCarthy and Kyler Murray in that situation and everything he learned and how good this team can be. So thanks, everybody. And make sure you like, subscribe, all that stuff, and check out the newsletter, purpleinsider.football, and I will catch you later. Football.